dryback calculations. So we've had a lot of conversation between volumetric and absolute. Actually had a lot of conversations before your irrigation book went out, and you were receptive enough and kind enough to include some of that stuff in there. Do you want to, we've talked about this a couple times with people, but there's no one better to help explain it. So
I call it a relative or absolute. Absolute would be, say you're just subtracting my dryback from my VWC. That's all you're doing. Say you wanted a 15% dryback from a 60% max target. I just take 60 minus 15. That's fine if your substrates are always at 60. But running so many sensors, you just know that that's not the case. Every plant's going to be different. Every single plant's different. You know, you might plug a sensor in one plant and it's reading 60, and then you move that sensor to a different plant and it's reading 45 at field capacity. So if I was to run an absolute dryback on a 45, it's going to get down low, you know, way lower, you know, than it would be if it's in a 60. So I wanted to create something where we have a proportional dryback, no matter what your field capacity number is. And the only way to do that is a relative calculation of dryback, which is a percent of a percent. You know, it gets a little confusing, but I do have plants that sometimes sit at 30% at max VWC, so I can't dry back 30% if you have zero. Yeah. So what you're doing is, say you have your goal is a 30% dryback. I want to know what my VWC is after 30% of that moisture is gone from that substrate. So I need to know what is my VWC when there's 70% left, if I'm considering field capacity my 100%. So say my field capacity is 60, to find a 30% dryback, I take 60 times 0.7, which is the inverse of 30. Mm-hmm. Then I know, okay, that's my new dryback target there for that particular substrate. And it's important to know that if you change your sensor to a different plant, you have to figure out your new field capacity for that substrate.
Definitely.
Or else you're just kind of just winging it. You don't know what's going on. You might way overshoot, or you might way undershoot. That's why I created that, you know, is to make sure that we have a proportional dryback, no matter what the VWC is.
Yeah. Which do you prefer? Do you just use them in different scenarios?
I use them in different scenarios. Yeah. You know, it's like the things that don't matter as much to me, say like my maintenance dryback or my P1 maintenance dryback. I like to just set an absolute. Yep. You know, I'll just set a 3%, you know, or something like that. But something where I could really damage the plant is if I dry back too hard or something like that, then I'll calculate that in a relative, which is great that in Copilot you could pick and choose, you know, relative or absolute for particular settings.
Yeah.
Which is, that really helps.